Okay. Our next speaker is Jo Shemmons, and she'll be talking to us about the public service PSPO. Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. This is about the third time I've spoken on this week, so apologies to anyone who's heard it twice before. I'm here from the campaign to say no to the Birmingham PSPO. PSPO, or Public Space Protection Order. Birmingham City Council are proposing the implementation of a Public Space Protection Order across central Birmingham, which could be used to criminalise rough sleepers. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit first of all what a PSPO is for those who don't know. So it's basically an order that gives law enforcement agencies specific powers, usually around things like antisocial behaviour. So Birmingham City Council have gone out and marketed this PSPO as very much about antisocial behaviour. They've related to the knife crime, to abuse, drug issues in the city, etc., vandalism, graffiti, and so on. And they've done some pop-up stalls in Broad Street area in the centre of Birmingham, talking to people as part of a consultation, and kind of focusing on antisocial behaviour. And of course, our campaign completely respects the right of local law enforcement to protect people coming into central Birmingham. Couldn't agree more. But what they're not telling many people is some of the details included in this public space protection order. For example, we've got issues around you could be picked up or criminalised if you sleep in a doorway, or if you leave your belongings in a doorway, or if you sit down on a street corner, put a little cup next to you, and you're considered to be begging, and not aggressive begging here, so not coming up and intimidating him, but literally just sitting down with a cup in the hope that somebody might give you a little bit of change, or asking somebody if you've got a few pence for a cup of tea. A lot of people are not aware it was included in the consultation proposal, so it was out there, but it's very much hidden in the detail. Now, the reason we object to this PSPO is because we believe that it could be used to criminalise people who are homeless. And I'm going to give you a few figures sort of at a national level. So there was a 2018 report by The Guardian, which the big issue quoted. We've got 50 local authorities have got PSPOs in place of this nature. Fines of £100 will be issued. If you can't pay that fine, now assume that you're a homeless person, it could go up to £1,000. And if you can't pay that, it can escalate then to what's called a criminal behaviour order violation, which can result in up to 5 years in prison. Now, if you're a homeless person, you're sleeping rough on the street, or you're in a hostel and perhaps you're coming out, sitting outside in the day, the chances are you're not going to be able to afford to pay a fine, you're going to end up with a criminal conviction. How on earth is that going to help you rehabilitate and get back into the community again? And I've got a quote here from Liberty, the human rights organisation. They oppose these PSPOs nationally, and they have written to the council opposing this particular PSPO. And this is what they've said. PSPOs criminalise both the most vulnerable and those exercising their democratic right to protest. We urge any councils considering them to think again. Now, we're coming at it very much from the side of homeless people, but it is worth saying that if you decide that you want to have a lobby of the council, like we did a couple of weeks ago, or the Trump protest that we had on Monday, it could be that they go, sorry, we can't have you congregating outside, and if you don't move, they're going to arrest you. And that's, literally what could happen. Now, we've contacted Birmingham City Council. I've written to the leader of the council, Ian Ward, and all of the cabinet members. I've had no response from Ian Ward, no response from any of the cabinet members. I have had a response from Councillor John Cotton, who I believe is now taking the lead on this. His response was very much to talk about antisocial behaviour again. He even tried to link it in some way to the Reclaim the Night campaign, which obviously is a fantastic campaign about the safety of women in Birmingham city centre. But his response was very low on addressing the issues of how this might affect rough sleepers. And again, to give you a little bit of background information, we're not just being paranoid here. A survey by Crisis of 458 rough sleepers found that 73% had experienced some kind of enforcement in the past year, and 1 in 10 had experienced formal penalties. And this is the very interesting point in relation to the council stance, because the council have said, don't worry, we're going to offer support if it's relating to a rough sleeper or a homeless person. The survey from Crisis found that 94% of councils said that support and advice were always given alongside enforcement actions. However, 81% of rough sleepers said that they had received no support or advice at all during their last experience of enforcement. And what we want to know is, we completely understand that the council probably have the best intentions in trying to make our streets safer, but how can they ensure that a particular law enforcement officer or housing officer is actually going to be trained or skilled enough to offer the right support to a homeless person? Now, we know that in this city, rough sleeping has doubled, well, it's doubled nationally since 2010, but it's gone up 60% in the last year. So it is a significant issue. So what we're doing is we're saying to Birmingham City Council, look, completely respect your rights to keep the people of Birmingham safe, but what we'd like you to do is withdraw this PSPO and instead work with local charities, invest funds into the support mechanisms to help people who are sleeping rough on the street to get back in, to get into hostels, to get into accommodation. It's worth noting that we also wrote to nine of the Birmingham, the 9 Birmingham Labour MPs to ask their opinion on this PSPO. And so far we've had a response from 1, which was Pre-Gill. So what are we doing as a campaign? We had a successful lobby on the 21st of May outside the council house in Birmingham. Around 100 people attended. We had some fantastic speakers, including Councillor Majid Mahmood and Councillor Kerry Jenkins, both from Birmingham, both who also opposed these proposals. We had a speaker from the Community Law Partnership, Simon Foster, who also have written a response and opposed these proposals. We had the former leader of Dudley Council, Councillor Pete Lowe, who's now a prospective mayoral candidate, who came and spoke for us. He also opposes these proposals and in fact has done a fantastic video to support our campaign. So there are many people from different organisations who have real concerns. Just a very quick update. Last Tuesday, there was a scrutiny committee meeting, the Housing and Home Scrutiny Committee, which started looking at the issue. So on Tuesday they had a meeting, and that was sort of hearing the evidence in support of this PSPO. And in the beginning of July, they're going to have a second meeting, and this will be hearing, I guess, the opposition to the PSPO. So we're submitting information, Liberty, the Human Rights Campaign, has submitted information, and various others. What we're asking people to do in support of our campaign, we've got an online petition, which is about 800 signatures, I think, and then we've got a paper petition, which I've got with me now as well. We're also asking people to contact their local councillors, to contact your local MP, to do everything you can to raise this. If you are a member of a Labour Party or a trade union, there is a resolution which has gone round some of the Labour Party branches already, successfully in opposition to the PSPO. We completely understand that Birmingham City Council, like councils across the country, has had to face crippling cuts and has had to make some very difficult decisions. But we feel, in the case of when you've got things like universal credit, people's benefits being stopped, insecure housing, people going to food banks just to survive and feed their children, we feel that homeless people should not be made to bear the brunt of austerity. This sort of issue has come up again and again recently, with decisions that have been made locally, such as the proposed cuts to care workers' hours and pay, for example. And we feel it's time that the council listen to what people of Birmingham are saying. We're a compassionate city, and we want our city to be safe, but not at the expense of the most vulnerable people. I've got some leaflets here which I'm going to hand round. It's got our Facebook on, it's got our Twitter, it's got our online petition, and what I'll also do, if that's okay with you, is I will share electronically some more information and the resolution if anyone wants to take it to their Labour Party or their trade union branch. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo, for an excellent contribution. Have we any questions? Any questions, anyone? 9?
I thought there was some rumours that the council may be reconsidering the position on PSP.
I think that's what this. We haven't been told that, but I think it's because this scrutiny committee has on Tuesday. But as I say, they've heard evidence in support of the PSPO from John Cotton and one of the chief constables. As yet, they haven't turned around and said anything. The understanding, I think, is a bit of a fact-finding. Then the beginning of July meeting will be hearing the opposition to the proposals, but there's no indication that they're going to turn it around. However, our campaign, we've taken advice from Liberty, the human rights organisation, and what they've said is the best way to stop this proposal, or even to have it amended so that it doesn't impact homeless people, is community organising. A legal challenge is possible, but obviously that's expensive and lengthy. So that's really the best way is for us to make our voices heard and to raise these concerns. And I think because the scrutiny committee is now looking at it, now is very much the time to do it.
Mike?
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, there was a report coming out by the United Nations to say that in this country there is in excess of 14 million people living in poverty. So it's not unusual to think that quite a few of them are going to end up in doorways, etc. If there's anybody being antisocial in this particular issue, I think it's the council. They should realise what's happening in the world with the insecure working, because it's no longer the case that you're in a job for any length of time. You're in a job maybe for an hour, maybe for a week, maybe for a month. So when you put all these things together, and when you realise that the housing market is basically broken, whereby young people in the main are no longer able to afford to get on to buy a house, we've got councils who are not building any houses, the problem starts to come that where do you go? And you end up right at the bottom. And rather than victimise these people, we should be seriously looking at how we're going to resolve the problem, not enhance it. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. I mean, just sort of off the record, so I'm not quoting anything from him, but my husband works for one of the local homeless charities. They're completely swamped. Literally, they're having to turn people. They don't turn people away if somebody is literally sleeping rough, but the services, the support services are swamped. When he teaches, so he kind of sees people almost sort of on their way out of homelessness and they're looking to get basic skills and things like that. He's supposed to have, I think, 10 members that he's working with. He's working with 28 at the moment, and then he's taking another tutor. And he's also going out to places like St Basil's and Cypher and doing classes and one-to-ones there. And the issues are so wide-ranging. I mean, one of the things I saw in the Birmingham Mail, I'm not going to say which councillor it was, and they started to say, oh, some people don't want to sleep in temporary accommodation, some people don't want one of the beds, and it's because a lot of them want to take drugs and they can't do that when they go there. And it was so heartbreaking to hear that, because obviously, although my husband, he doesn't tell me names, but he does come back with the stories and anecdotes, and there are so many different types of issues. There are people who've come into this country with no recourse to public funds, there are people who've experienced domestic violence, abuse, people trafficking, so many people that come through as presenters homeless with so many different issues. And to pigeonhole that, everyone who's homeless or sleeping on the street potentially is because they take drugs. Yes, there are those issues there, but many people actually end up taking drugs or drinking when they're on the street because of the terrible situation that they're in, rather than the other way around. And I think, absolutely, I mean, what we're saying is, look, poor funding and training into helping the local homeless charities, so that they're swamped, but they do a very, very good job. Carry on supporting them and working with them to deal with the issues and the root causes, rather than criminalising people.
Poverty.
Stuart?
I mean, I think the other thing that we
Stuart,
noted is that from reports, Liam Byrne MP is on manoeuvres trying to get the nomination for the Labour Euromare, and somebody reported at a Unite community meeting that he'd approached Ladywood to speak on homelessness, and he's issuing various things. It's interesting that he's completely silent on this. He's not willing to be critical of the council. He's not willing to come to the rally, lobbying the council, and it's the height of cynicism to use people's tragedy to pursue your own career, but don't pursue anything. But I think the other thing that Birmingham Council needs to get on top of is the phenomenon of empty houses. I mean, I live in Erlington, there's a lot of empty houses, There's one near a major Catholic church, a group of houses, which have been sort of derelict for 5-10 years, There was an article in the Birmingham Mail that along the number 16 route that goes from the sort of limits of Hounsworth Road into town, there's about 100 empty houses. Now, the councils have powers including the right to seize property after going through some protest. As far as I know, doing nothing at all about it. There's a more broader point, which we've had some discussion in the past, that the problem is you know, you've got a historic low house building, particularly council house building, and I mean, we have this disgusting situation that in 2004, under the Blair government, only 404 council houses were built. I mean, under this rotten Tory government, we have 1,820, which is disgustingly few. But, you know, there's a whole series of failures of building public housing, which is actually intensifying the whole homelessness problem. And hopefully, with a Corbyn government, we're going to see a step change in that and a major council house, public house building programme.
Okay. Do you want to address that all?
Yeah, just very quickly to say, without wishing to comment too much on the whole mayoral campaign, yeah, I mean, I've even tried to draw Liam Byrne out on Twitter on the PSPO, and one of the other councillors was asking him a question about it, and he really sort of gave politicians' answer, which was not a yes and not a no. Yes, oddly enough, when there's a report in the Birmingham Mail about the proposals, and there was a mention of our campaign, and then underneath there was a quote from Liam Byrne saying about how terrible homelessness was. He wasn't actually even at the rally, and he won't give us an answer. So that was really, how did his name pop in there? The house builder, I mean, I completely agree, and I think one of the things that we've talked about is the idea of this housing first initiative, that you give someone somewhere to live first of all, but also you need to have the support mechanisms around them to make sure that they can manage with, you know, getting back into work, coping with finances and mental health issues and everything else. So I think it's a package of support that someone who has been sleeping with, someone who's been homeless needs. But I think essentially, if someone doesn't have a home, what do they need? They need a home. it's not rocket science, is it?
Okay, now we do have a heavy agenda tonight. Now, do you wish Joe to take on 2 more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, one of the things that's concerning us locally is not just the houses in multiple occupation, but particularly those which have exemptions, and they're run by some organisation. They get about £300 a room or something like that. And the problem is though, they're supposed to provide a light touch to support people with whatever problem.
Yeah.
And we're finding that this doesn't exist. I mean, it could be just to pay someone and a member of the family for about half an hour. So that in fact there is nothing there. So what we're finding is that we're getting increasing numbers of people with particular needs. It's a problem for the police in this respect. You're not going out just to get people, but there are crimes being committed, drugs and all these sorts of things. So this is, I mean, there's this kind of legislation which is on, and you know the council are operating it in this way, which is causing a lot of money, a lot of problems, and there's just not the people to enforce. You know, even if we go out to try and get this sorted out, I mean, the police are actually having a go at landlords as well, which has been quite a move forward in this respect. But I mean, it's a real problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think sort of insecure housing is a big issue, but also as well, I mean, some of the temporary accommodation that's offered to homeless people, particularly people sleeping rough. I mean, since doing this campaign, I've spoken to quite a few people sleeping rough. And one of the issues they've said, some of them are actually scared to go into the accommodation. They're scared of the stuff being stolen. They're scared of being attacked. One person said they went to a hostel and there was somebody else who kept them back every night and kicking the door in because they forgot what room they were in. Some people actually feel safer sleeping outside, and that's not to take away from, you know, organisations like the Salvation Army and the services they provide, but obviously they've got limited funds as well. And I think it's a big issue in not just trying to get someone, you know, off the street and into something, but somewhere that's safe, and somewhere that, again, that they do get the right support, rather than just sort of, you're in a hostel, but you know what I mean, you need, there can be very complex issues that people need extra help with, and I don't think at the moment the support mechanisms are there.
That deserves a look at in its own right.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really a question. I think we look at this from a different perspective. And, you know, we believe the campaign is public space protection or just the thin end of the wedge. Basically, this has happened in Harborne where they actually mobilised the middle class to implement a public space protection order. But what we're finding is that they're actually targeting young kids that sort of hang around the streets. Now, some of you may know this thing called the gangs matrix, which the police have actually got a database of what they call kids who are probably potentially going to be troublemakers, which again, they can use that to put into the back of this public space protection order. And this is basically targeted at mainly black and ethnic minority men. So again, we know what this is all about. This is all about clearing the streets because the City Council invested millions in the Commonwealth Games. You can see all the cranes going up. They're building all across the city of all these empty properties, there are all these offices that are never used, yet they're not tackling the real problem and supporting these people who are the most weakest, in our society. And again, you'll have CCTV. This is all interlinked into what this public space protection order is all about. I can just say, on the last Tuesday, we had 300 people march right across the city to hold a vigil outside the knife angle there, and potentially, if this public space protection order had come in, if we hadn't have pre-booked, we can hold that vigil out there with a speaker. So again, to me, this is just all the thin end of the wedge, you know. So basically, that's my contribution to this debate. But I say public space protection order should be called out. This is a Labour Party council. And that's where we should be focusing a lot of this attention on. I'm sure Joe and the campaign will do that. So.
Yes, some very good points you've raised there, Michael. I completely agree. I mean, the national charities are about to launch a campaign where they look to abolish the Vagrancy Act. Now, going back to sort of the 80s, we might remember that the Vagrancy Act was used for what they called the sus laws to target communities. And what do they lead to? And one of the issues that concerns me about this PSPO, I mean, we're coming at it from a homeless perspective. But there's an argument in there that basically says if we suspect you of doing something, you look like you're going to do something. And straight away, I thought, this reminds me of the sus laws. Oh, they're going to pick you up because you look like you're going to cause trouble. Since when do we, give the police the right to become fortune tellers and read people's minds? There's a lot of detail in there. So we've come at it mainly from the homeless perspective. But from a human rights perspective, there's a lot more than just homelessness that can be affected. And absolutely, the right to protest, like we said, the right to hold a lobby outside the council, all these things could be under threat. Just a, human rights issue of what we do and how we use the public space in Birmingham.
Thank you, Joe, for the excellent contribution tonight and the way she handled the questions. I'll present you with one of our
Thank you very much.
seldom seen but highly collectible badges as a souvenir of your visit.
Thank you very much.
Okay.